Welcome to this orientation lecture covering employment practices. Before we begin, I'm going to ask that you pause this lecture and find a spiral notebook or some notebook paper in which to take notes. There'll be several points during this lecture you'll want to pause me to jot down the information that I'm presenting. If you don't jot it down now, I think in a few weeks you may be a little bit frustrated because you'll need to have some information from this lecture and you might not be able to easily get your hands on it. So I think that spending a couple of minutes doing this activity now is going to save you time in the long haul. At various points in this lecture, I will actually suggest that you pause the lecture, but of course you can pause it at other times too, depending upon the information that you think is important for you to make a note of. So let's begin with the lecture. I'm going to start with the syllabus. When I cover the syllabus, I actually end up covering more than just the syllabus, so it will actually take us a while to get through everything that is relevant to the syllabus. I'm going to get started here. Oops, way too big. Here we go. So as we cover the syllabus, the first thing to note on the first page is, really the only thing to know on the first page is the withdrawal date. Now, of course, the withdrawal date is going to be different on each semester, but you'll find it about halfway down the page, typically on the first page of the syllabus. This is an important date for you to put in your calendar, so I'm going to suggest you pause me, go get whatever calendaring tool you use for your classes and write down this date. This is going to be the withdrawal date, whatever that date is on your particular syllabus. That will be the date in which you will need to decide whether you're going to continue in the course or to withdraw from the course. After that date, whatever that date may be, it's much more difficult for you to withdraw from the course. And unless you're able to persuade the dean that you should be permitted to withdraw after the withdrawal date, then you'll end up either needing to complete the course or getting an F in the course. So it's an important date to be aware of. This date is not unique to this particular class. It'll be the date for any 16-week course in a long semester or any 10-week course in a summer semester. So be sure to note that. Now, I do want to say that if you feel like, gosh, I'm not being successful in this course, please reach out to me before you withdraw. Usually, but almost always, but I would say almost always, if not always, there is plenty of time at the midpoint of the semester for you to turn the tide and be successful in the course. I'm glad to help. Many times those students will come to me and they think that they are doing poorly in the class when in fact they may have an A or a B in the class. So I'm happy to sit down with you, figure out what your grade is trending to at this time, and develop strategies to help you get to the result that you would like to achieve. So don't worry about a grade until you've kind of nailed down and seen what it is and see what your options are. And once you're ready to make an informed decision, then that would be the time to kind of put the pieces together and decide whether you want to withdraw or not. The second page doesn't really contain much that we need to be concerned about, but when you get to the section that's called Instructor Information, then there's going to be some stuff that's interesting for you to know. The first thing is where my office is located. My office is on the Frisco or the Preston Ridge campus in the library building. My room number is 232. And then you'll see below that are my office hours. Obviously, my office hours vary from semester to semester, but you can see here, I've got some in the morning, I've got some in the afternoon, I've got some in which I meet with students in my office. I have some where I meet with students, this is actually an associate faculty office, and I have some where I meet with students virtually. Let's go through and how these various options work. If it's option 1, you can come to my office or you can call my office, and the number for my office is right down here. If it's in the associate faculty office, then you're welcome to come to my office. If you and I have made previous arrangements, then we can also set it up so that I call you or you call me at a telephone number that's in the associate faculty office. That'll involve a little bit more effort on our parts to make those arrangements, but it's absolutely something that we can do. And then I usually have Zoom office hours, and Zoom is actually a very, very neat virtual office function. Let me show you how it works. What you do is you go down here, we're going to make that link here. You click on this and it will take you into the Zoom conference room that we are in. And once you're there, you'll be able to see me, you'll be able to see my computer screen, I'll be able to see you, and I'll be able to see your computer screen if you choose to make those items visible to me. So it's a really neat way for us to meet. Maybe you're at work or this is your lunch hour, and so you want to step away for a few minutes from your job and meet with me about a particular topic. This is a relatively easy way to do it that doesn't require you to travel to campus. When I do Zoom meetings, I usually do these from my home, so I'm not going to be available in my office unless, again, you and I have made prior arrangements along those lines. We can do Zoom meetings via telephone, and this is how you do it through telephone. So there's lots of different options for us meeting. Of course, if these don't fit with you, we always have the option of making some other type of arrangement. If you'd like to make some type of other arrangement, then you would send me an email and we can figure out when you're available, when I'm available, and what's the best way for us to get together and talk. You can see here with the virtual office approach, the Zoom approach, we have both access for Android and PC and also iPhone, and in addition to a landline option. So let me talk a little bit about email. This is an important topic, especially in an online course, and so I want to spend some time discussing how to communicate with me. This is my email message, and I think you'll discover very quickly that I'm pretty compulsive about my emails. I'm compulsive about it in two ways. One, I guess, is positive, maybe the other is a little bit annoying. I don't know what your view on it will be. On the positive side is I return emails kind of weirdly fast. It's not unusual for me to respond to an email within a minute or two of you sending it. I follow my emails very, very closely, and unless I'm in class or I'm sleeping, very likely I will respond very, very quickly. I mean, there are times where it might take me longer, but if you haven't heard from me within 24 hours of you sending the email, it probably means that somehow or another it got mislaid and I have inadvertently in my mind thought I've sent it and it's actually went into a draft folder or something along those lines. So please resend it to me so that I'll be able to respond. The one exception to that quick response, though, is that I don't monitor my emails over the weekend. I don't because I am in a location most weekends in which I don't have cell phone or internet reception. I don't have Wi-Fi, and so I won't know that you sent me an email, so I won't be able to respond to it under those circumstances. It's a deliberate lifestyle choice that my family has made, and so from about Friday afternoon until Monday morning, I'm in most weeks going to be incommunicado. That's one reason if you've got something percolating that you're going to have some questions about over the weekend, or you think you're going to need that information over the weekend, please be sure to reach out to me early in the week and we can resolve whatever that issue is. So that's the first information I want to share about the email. The second information is a little bit, here we go, a little bit it's equally important for you to know about. Here we are with our Canvas classroom, and you'll see over here in this column there's a box that's called Inbox, and this is a way that you can communicate with your instructors and your instructors can communicate with me. Lots of students and instructors like this tool. I am not one of them. Unfortunately, I am not able to turn this tool off. That would be the best choice, but unfortunately it's not one that we have available. So you should not use this tool. You should not send me emails. Now, when I say you shouldn't send me emails, I'm not at all saying that this isn't a good tool for some of your other classes. It may well make sense. The reason that I don't use it for this or any of my other classrooms is that I happen to have a particular filing system that I use with student emails that is tied to my email address. And since I already have a well-established system, I don't want to have competing systems. And the inbox app on Canvas is not as robust as what I can do with my email. So because I tell all my classes don't use this inbox, I don't monitor this. So if you send me an email here, weeks can go by and I won't notice that you sent me an email. So it's not a very efficient way to communicate with me. That's why you're going to want to use this email address. So keep that in mind. And again, I put a little reminder here. Don't send it through the messaging tool. Use my email. Another thing to keep in mind is that while I'm very compulsive about answering emails, I do not have the same level of access to my voicemail. You're welcome to call my number while I am in my office hours, assuming they're not the Zoom office hours. Most of the time I'll pick up during class night or during the actual office hours. Now, of course, if I'm meeting with a student, I'm not going to pick up, but otherwise I'm available to talk with you right then, so you don't need to have an appointment. You just call me if you would like to meet with me in that way. Outside of my office hours, though, please don't leave me a voicemail. Days and days can go by before I even am aware that you've left a voicemail message. Email is a lot quicker way of reaching me. Now, when I say I prefer email to voicemail, what I don't mean is that I don't mean that I don't want to talk to you. Sending me an email saying, hey, Professor Groover, I need to talk to you. Can we schedule some time? I am delighted to work with you about a time that would be convenient for you and for me. So sending me an email doesn't mean we won't be talking or we won't be arranging a time to meet or perhaps having a telephone call. Just don't leave me a voicemail, because again, it's a little bit like the inbox over here. It might be quite a while before you get a response, and I know that can be very frustrating. And the last thing I want you to experience any frustration in contacting me. The textbook that we're using for this semester is listed right here. You can buy it in lots of different formats. You can rent it, you can buy a used one, you can do lots of different things. This textbook may be different from one semester to another, so you always look on the syllabus to figure out which is the book that you need to purchase or get access to. Here is the way that points are allocated in this course. And again, there may be tweaks from one semester to another, so be sure to check your syllabus to see what the particular equation is for this particular semester. You can see that there's 1 point for the orientation quiz. I mean, that's just really to get you interested in completing the quiz. Let's first of all talk a little bit about how the orientation quiz is set up. Well, you can take this quiz 3 times during that first week. And let me show you where you can see. So here's where we start the course. I'm going to go over here to modules. And you'll see that here is the orientation quiz. I don't yet have a date entered here, but you can see down here for this particular assignment, there's the number of points available and in the date. Once I've established a due date here, then we'll have the due date right where the number is, and then we'll have the numbers over here. So that's the place to look on your Canvas to see when the orientation quiz is due. And once you have that, then you're going to want to go back at least 3 days so that you can start that quiz, because you can take the quiz up to 3 times, but you have to wait a day before you take it the next time. Most students get 100 or a 90 the very first time they take it, assuming that they've looked over the materials. Sometimes a student maybe makes a careless mistake and needs to take it a second time. It's even possible you might need to take it a third time, but I'm going to tell you that the odds of you, if you've been paying attention, of you needing to take a third time is very, very small. The goal, of course, is for you to get 100. It's not a difficult quiz at all. If you get a 90 or higher, then that's the grade that you're going to get. So let's say you get 100. You're going to get all of your 1 point towards your final grade included for your orientation quiz. If, though, you don't get to a 90, either you don't take the quiz at all or you don't score well on it, then you get a 0. You're giving up that point. Again, this will be the easiest points you get in the class, so I'm not worried about you actually getting an 89. If you are interested in doing well in the quiz, you'll get much better than an 89. The next thing that I like to talk about is what is worth 5% of your grade, and these are discussion boards. We have lots of discussion boards in this course. let me explain to you how the discussion board works. The first thing that you'll need to do when you are working on a discussion board is you'll need to make a substantive post. You'll need to respond to the prompt and post what you think is a good response to it. Your substantive post has to be at least 100 words long. Most people have posts significantly longer than that. At the end of your post, you need to list the number of words. One way of doing that is just to post it in Microsoft Word. Let me just show you how I might do it. I might go to Review and do word count, and you can see it'll tell me the part I've highlighted was just 8 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you can ask for a count. That's an easy and quick way of doing it. Of course, you can manually count the words if that's more convenient for you. So you'll list the word count. If you have less than 100 words, you will get a deduction. If you have 1,000 words but you don't put your word count on it, you will get a deduction. But both of those are relatively trivial matters. I mean, after all, there's lots of discussion boards, and all of the discussion boards in combination only worth 5% of your grade. So it's not a big deal if you don't do great on a particular discussion board. But what is a problem is if you misrepresent the number of words that you have. That is an academic integrity issue. I am required to report that. Now, if you're off 1 or 2 or 3 words, no big deal. But if it's a situation which you've obviously misrepresented your word count, that's a problem, and I'll need to present that to the administration. In addition to your substantive posts, you'll need to make at least 1 reply post. You'll have to reply to one of the other students in the class, and that will need to be at least 40 words long. Let me just show you an example of one of these posts. Let's look at this first one. It's called Introduction to Employment Law. So we'll click on that, and you'll see that there is a video to watch, and there's a little prompt here to talk about. And then you can submit an assignment. This actually isn't a typical one, so I'm going to go back to the modules. So let me give you one that's a little bit more typical. Let's look at the discussion board, we'll say for at-will employment. So you click on this, you see that there is a prompt, and then there's a summary of how you go about, or what the requirements are for your discussion board. So if you've forgotten that it has to be 100 words, you can't remember if it's 100 or 200 words, the instructions will be right here. And once you've gotten through here, and you've decided what you're going to write, I recommend you type up your discussion board post first in Google Docs or Microsoft Word or something like that. And then you hit reply. And then that's when you cut and paste your comment in there. As always, of course, you're going to want to spell check it. You're going to want to make sure you have grammatically correct sentences, all that good stuff. This is college level work, and it does require that attention to detail. Then once you hit reply and post yours, you're going to be able to see everyone else who has posted, and then you're going to want to reply to one of those. You can reply to multiple students, but you have to reply to at least one, and your reply has to be at least 100 words long. At least 40 words long, basically 2 sentences. Okay, so let me go back to the syllabus. That's how you participate in the discussion board. If your discussion board post is in some sense inadequate, and typically the problems are your post was under 100 words, you left off your word count, or your reply post, either it's non-existent or it's too short. I will, in most cases, give you a comment that explains what the deficiency was. So be sure, if you don't get all the points for a particular discussion board post, you go ahead and click and find out what the problem was. Okay, so let me go back to our equation here. We've talked about the orientation quiz, and we've talked about the discussion participation. Now we're going to talk about these 2 options, or these 2 activities, chapter assignments and chapter quizzes. And you can see they're both worth 20% of your grade for a total of 40% of your grade. Let's talk about these. They have a lot of things in common. One of the things to keep in mind is that they both pull from a question bank. This is actually the same question bank that test questions from the midterm and the final examination pull from. So when you're taking that chapter assignment, you're not only completing the chapter assignment, you're also studying for the midterm and the final examination. It may well be the case that one of the questions that you see on your chapter assignment or your chapter quiz will also show up in your version of the midterm and the final examination. As a result of the fact that it's pulling from a test bank, your chapter assignment won't match anyone else's chapter assignment. I mean, one or two questions might be the same, but they will, for the most part, not be that similar. So let's talk about what makes up your chapter assignment and how that's going to work. Typically, they will have 20 questions. About half will be true, false, and about half will be multiple choice. You can use your book, you can use your notes, you can use your lectures, you can come see me. And it's completely untimed. You can also work with other students in the class. And so that's a neat thing to keep in mind as you're working through these problems. Chapter quizzes typically have 15 questions. It's also worth 20 points. There's typically 10 true-false questions, each worth 1 point, and 5 multiple choice, each one of those worth 2 points. You need to work on these independently, meaning that you can't get assistance from other students in the class or your attorney mother, your attorney father, or something along those lines. You need to work independently, but you can use your notes, you can use your textbook. Keep in mind, of course, that you only have 10 minutes to answer 15 questions, so if you're really kind of diving in and trying to find multiple answers, you're likely to run out of time. So yeah, you might be able to look up one or two, but probably you're not going to be able to look up a ton. And again, because these are being drawn from question banks, your chapter quiz for that particular chapter isn't going to be identical to someone else's. So that's another issue to keep in mind. Now let's turn to the midterm and the final examination. You can see here the midterm is worth 25%, the final examination is worth 29%. In many ways, these are very similar to these items because they're going to draw from the same question bank. But there are some important differences. The midterm and the final examination are untimed, so they're like the chapter assignments, but they are closed, but you can't get assistance, so that's how they are like a quiz. And unlike both chapter assignments and chapter quizzes, they are not closed book and closed notes. Now you may be thinking to yourself, well, Groover, how do you enforce that? Because guess what? People cheat, especially when they're at home and not being monitored. Well, I recognize that. I wasn't born yesterday. I'm familiar with the fact that when people are taking tests in their homes, many are not going to follow the rules if it's closed book and closed notes. Many will, but not all will. As a result, the midterm and the final examination will be proctored. You have two choices, though, about how to proctor it. The first option, which is what the vast majority of students will take advantage of in this class, is to take the midterm and the final examination in one of Collins testing centers. We have a testing center on all 3 major campuses, Frisco, McKinney, and Plano. I will drop off the test information to the Frisco Testing Center, which is located in Founders Hall on the 2nd floor right above the bookstore. You're welcome to take it at that location. You also can take it in one of the other 2 locations. When I submit the test information, I will also check a box on the form that says that this test information should be shared with the other testing centers. And I'll even remind the testing personnel to do that. The vast majority of the time, it works like clockwork. The test is sent to the other testing centers and everything is hunky-dory. Every now and again, though, there's a glitch. Maybe it's somebody forgets to send it to the testing centers. Maybe the other testing centers don't file it correctly. Whatever happens, it happens, and it's not there at that particular testing center. That can be a real problem for you, and so let me offer you some suggestions about how to handle that. The first suggestion is call the day before you plan on taking the test to confirm that they have it. Hey, this is Bob. I'm in HRPO 2303 in the online section. I want to take my midterm tomorrow. Do you have access to it? They'll look it up and they'll tell you yes or no. If they say no, and the testing window has already started, then my suggestion at that point would be to say to them, gosh, well, my instructor told me that you ought to have access to it. Can you check again? You might think, well, gosh, that's not going to work. They already looked one time. You would think it wouldn't work, but it works a pretty high percentage of the time. So let's say they go back and they look and they still can't find it. This is when you say, well, gosh, my instructor told me that she was going to release it to this campus. Can you call the Frisco campus and ask them to resend it? What is very likely to happen at this point is that they'll call the Frisco Center. Frisco Center will pull it up and say, yep, we see that we're supposed to release it to you. Don't know what happened, but we'll resend it to you. And then they'll be able to set it up. And when you come the next day, you'll be able to take the test. Big success story. But let's say despite your best efforts, you just can't get that issue resolved. For some reason or another, it's just not going to be available on your campus. Well, now you have two choices. One choice is to go ahead and go to the Frisco campus. Not a big deal. I mean, after all, the campuses are only about 30 minutes apart, so it's something that isn't a big deal to go ahead and go to the Frisco campus. But if you don't want to do that, at that point you can reach out to me. Now I'm going to ask you, have you taken those steps? And you're going to say, well, yes, I did this and this and this, and it didn't work out. And so then I'm in a position to offer assistance to you. But keep in mind, if you're taking one of these tests over the weekend, I'm not going to be even aware of your concern until the Monday morning. And so that may not be a very convenient arrangement for you. And of course, if you're trying if you're figuring out that the test isn't available on the day that you want to take the test, it's unlikely that I'm going to be able to spring into action and assist you on that day. So that's why you always want to get these issues resolved at least one day before you plan on taking the test. On another subject, you'll see that I offer midterms and final examinations for about a week, sometimes even a little bit longer. As a result, I do not give extensions. So if you have a car accident, God forbid, or you become sick near the end of the period of time, and you say, gosh, Groover, I really just can't take it on this date, I'm not going to disagree with you. But what I'm going to say is, yeah, I'm sorry that happened, but you had the days before your car accident, or you had the days before you went on that trip to the other location. And so unless you're somehow incapacitated for the entire time, I'm not going to be giving you an extension. I intentionally give a long window so that there isn't a need to give an extension. One way to think about it is think about the first 2 or 3 days as the period of time for the test and the rest of the period of time to be an automatic extension. There won't be another automatic extension. I hate to give you bad news, but I'm giving it to you now so that you'll know not to ask. And if you do ask, you'll know before I actually give you the answer what the answer is going to be. It's not that I don't believe you. It's not that I don't want you to be successful. It's that I've already prepared the response for this, and that is for you to take it on the early side. So please go ahead and take the test in the first couple of days, or maybe on the Saturday that's available for the test. Thank you for working with me in that area so that we don't have any issues. If you wait until the final day, and let's say all the computers are being used on your campus, that's going to be an unfortunate situation. You've invested so much time preparing. I would really hate to see you not be successful on a test because of delay in that sense. Okay, so that's how it's going to work with a testing center, but you know what? We have another option. Perhaps you're taking this course from another city. You are maybe going to Texas A&M at College Station, or you're stationed with the military in Europe or some other location, and you obviously can't come to Collin County to take the test. No worries. There is an approach you can use, and that is ProctorU. ProctorU is a super neat tool. What will happen with ProctorU is that you will be able to take your test in whatever location you happen to be in, and you will be remotely proctored while you're taking the test. So in many senses, it's very, very convenient. There are, however, a couple of things that you need to be aware of, actually 3 things you need to be aware of before you decide whether this is the right choice for you or not. The first thing to be aware of is that there is a fee associated with it. Typically, it's between $9 and $32 depending upon the length of time you take on the tests. You probably won't be in the 9-minute category, but you probably also won't be in the $30 category. And my guess is $20 to $25 is probably what you're going to end up spending per test. Not an insignificant amount of money. Sometimes people are tempted to think about ProctorU because they're concerned about the price of gas getting to the campus or maybe childcare arrangements. Most of the time it's going to be less expensive for you to drive to campus or to hire a babysitter for that period of time than to use ProctorU. Of course, that's your choice whether you want to do that, but it's usually not a cost-saving tool unless, of course, you're in, Peru or something like that. Obviously, ProctorU would be cheaper under those circumstances. The second thing that you want to be aware of with ProctorU is that your computer and your internet connection has to meet certain compatibility issues with ProctorU. If you have sketchy internet where you are or your computer is an older computer, it's possible that ProctorU won't be successful, won't work successfully. You definitely need to have a webcam on your computer or associated with your computer. Generally speaking, most people's reasonably recent computers are going to satisfy the requirements of ProctorU. Once we get to the point of talking about whether it's a good fit for you, I'm going to give you information so that you can actually test your computer. The third thing to think about is the deadline for submitting for ProctorU, and that's going to be 10 days before the start of the window for taking the examination. Let me show you where your window starts. Your window is going to start, so you can see this is the midterm examination. Your window is going to start for this particular semester on 3/18. So that means you need to contact me by 3/8. For your final examination, your window starts 5/13. So you have to contact me by 5 for May 3rd, in other words. So go ahead, pause me right now, and calendar the dates that are on your syllabus right now. If you're sure you're going to want to use ProctorU, what you can also do is pause right now and send me the email right now. Unfortunately, what happens for some students is they forget to send me the email. They're not really thinking about prepping for these tests until just a few days before, and then they realize, oh gosh, I need to use ProctorU, and yet the window has closed. In those cases, typically the student is going to need to come to campus and take the test in the traditional way. So keep those issues in mind. I don't want you not to have the option of taking the test the way that you would prefer to take it. So go ahead and calendar those days right now in your calendaring tool. Let's go to the next item. And this is I told you kind of the first way that I'm good about emails, which is I'm very quick about responding. Let me tell you the way that I can be a little bit annoying about emails. I apologize in advance if you find some of my email policies inconvenient, we'll put it that way. It really and truly is, whether you agree with me or not, I hope that you'll believe me when I say that it's designed to help you be successful. I understand that in this course, many of the specific laws that we're going to cover, many HR professionals aren't necessarily as expert in those areas as, say, an HR attorney needs to be. And so some of the things we cover in this class are perhaps a bit deeper dive than maybe you will be responsible for, because many HR managers have ready access to an HR attorney. Some do, some don't. So I kind of have to assume you don't have an attorney, a colleague with whom you are closely working. But if you happen to be somebody who does, you may think at times, gosh, Grover's getting really granular in this area. And that's true. But one way I'm sure I can add value to your life, I just know it, is by helping you write successful emails. No matter whether you're an HR manager or a middle manager or an executive or an attorney or really any other position, any other white-collar position, you are going to benefit tremendously in your career by being successful at emails. And unfortunately, people aren't taught how to write successful emails. It's not difficult. There's no science involved. Once you learn how to do it, it can become automatic pilot for you. And you are going to find that you get many, many goodies from this. Your instructors will perk up when they see your emails because they're so professionally written. They will want to help you. Instead of maybe giving you a half answer, they're going to give you the complete answer that you need. When you apply for jobs and you write your email in a way that presents yourself in the best possible light, you're going to get more job offers. You're going to set yourself up nicely for promotions. This is a path to great things, and it's not hard to do. So I'm going to give you some suggestions. I expect you to follow these in this class, but certainly I can't influence you directly in how you correspond with other faculty or other aspects of your life. But what I'm hoping is that you'll get into the habit of doing it in this class, and that habit will transfer to other areas. It really, really is huge. I promise you, this is kind of a recipe for success. So let's talk about what I'm suggesting that you do. The first thing to think about is, do you need to send an email to begin with? And there are two times that you may not be able, or you may not want to send an email. One is you may already have access to the information. When you're dealing with your boss or a client or your instructor, and you ask them a question that they've already told you the answer to, that's not a very impressive thing to do. That's one of the reasons why you're taking notes while you're listening to this lecture, so that you won't have to have difficulty finding that information. It's right at your fingertips, and you won't have to ask a question that you have already had access to the information. The same thing works with bosses and colleagues at work. They don't want to answer questions multiple times. It's annoying, and it makes you appear that you're not paying the careful attention that you hopefully are paying attention to. So the first thing before you write an email is, do I already have access to this information? Another thing to think about when you're deciding whether to send the email is, once I write it up, is the recipient going to be able to completely answer my question in 3 sentences or less? In other words, is it a discrete issue that is compact and the type of issue that can be resolved via email? An example of that type of thing could be, hey Groover, in your syllabus you say you want us to submit that assignment by April 14th, but on Canvas it says it's due on April 13th. Which of the dates should I be paying attention to? That's a perfect question for email, because I'll be able to say something like, oh, the date in the syllabus is wrong, the date on Canvas is correct, thank you for bringing it to my attention, I'll change the syllabus to reflect that. Easy peasy, 3 or less sentences. And so that's a perfect topic to do. But let me give you some examples of topics that aren't good for emails. I just finished reading chapter 7 and I don't get it. Can you explain it to me? It's a great question. Thank you for reading the chapter and for thinking critically about it. But the chapter is probably at least 10 pages long, and so if I'm going to explain it in more detail, I'm going to have to spend more than 10 pages. My guess is that there are portions of that chapter that did make sense to you, so it's probably not 100% of the chapter. And so you need to be more specific. What particular part of the chapter didn't make sense to you? If it really is the whole chapter, we're going to have to meet. But maybe it really isn't the whole chapter. It's just the bottom half of page 43. Okay, now I have more context. And maybe it's the particular example that the instructor or the textbook writer used, and you're not sure why the employer was liable given the fact that the employee lied on his resume or something along those lines. And so you want an answer to that. That may be something that I can answer in 3 sentences, and so that might be good for email. If it's too broad, what I'm going to do is I'm going to thank you for your email, and I'm going to suggest that we meet. Please don't be offended by that. I want to give you a complete answer that's meaningful for you. If it's one of those broad questions, my email response really isn't going to move us farther down the road, because it can't be as detailed as that whole chapter was in the textbook. And I'm not going to know what particular parts were troubling for you. It's true I could send you back an email saying, well, tell me which part of this is your question, and then you could send me an email back, and we could kind of go back and forth several times. But you know what? It's really just easier for us to have a 5, maybe 10-minute conversation over the phone to resolve it. So please be aware that that's a pretty common thing that I say after I get your email. I'm not brushing you off. I do want to talk with you. I want to get you the information that you need in the way that's going to be most helpful for you. So that's a little bit about when to use email. But let's assume that you think that the issue that you're sending to me is one that is appropriate for email. So now you're worried about, how do I structure that email? Okay, so one thing that you want to do is you'll want to think about, have you chosen a good subject line? Your subject line should have 2 components. For one thing, it should list the course. You can say employment practices, or you could say HRPO 2303. That's helpful for me because I oftentimes teach 7 courses, and because many of the terms that we use in this course might be in some other courses. I teach business law, I teach employment law in the paralegal program. So, if you were to say, I have a question about ERISA, well, I don't know which course you're corresponding with me about. I may recognize your name, but I may not remember which particular class you're in. So you do need to include this information so that I can zero in on the particular information that you need to know, because honestly, the information that a paralegal student might need to know about the topic might be very different than the information you need to know. And I don't want to saddle you with information that's not relevant to this particular course. The second thing is you want to include the question topic, at least to some extent. This helps me know how urgent the matter is and allows me to prioritize it. If it's a question about Chapter 10 assignment, but we're 3 or 4 weeks away from the deadline for submitting that assignment, I'm not going to feel like I have to drop everything and immediately assist you. If, though, you have a question about a discussion board, I've got a lot less time, and so I am going to see that as a more urgent matter. So it helps me prioritize the information. So you'll want to include both aspects. And here's a good example. Issue about question 4 on a Chapter 10 assignment. I can pull up your version of the assignment and look at what Chapter 4 is and give you assistance with respect to that. Once you've chosen a successful subject line, then you're going to want to start your email. And this is just a good rule of thumb to follow whenever you're corresponding with any potential employer or instructor or colleague. Start with a Dear, capital D, end with a colon. The colon signals to the reader, to the recipient, that this is a professional communication. If you're corresponding with your mom or with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you're going to use a comma because that's a personal communication. So that's a little way to demonstrate to the reader kind of what the focus of the email is. And then Professor Groover, if you prefer Ms. Groover, that's also fine. But you want to include my surname and an honorific in front of it. That's a good opening for an email. That's also useful when you're corresponding with your boss. Now, probably your boss you may be more informal with, so it might be Dear Bob, but still go ahead and use that colon. Then you're going to include the body of your email. You want to think about, is it clear? Is it professional? Of course, you're not going to want any typos in it. You're going to want to anticipate the questions that I might have. Many times I will get emails that probably made perfect sense in the student's head because he or she's been sweating this issue for a while, but I haven't been living that. I don't know what he or she has been looking at. And so it's a good idea for you to compose it and then sit back and kind of think, now wait a second. If I'm showing this to somebody who isn't in the context that I have been experiencing, will this completely make sense? Anticipate the questions that person might have. Now you may think, well, gosh, that seems like a lot of work. Actually, it's not, because you are wanting something from the other person, right? You're wanting a job if it's that job application. If it's an instructor, you're probably wanting some kind of information. And so the more you can help that person understand your question and make that person feel like, yeah, I want to help this student out, the more likely you are to get the information that you're seeking. So it's a win-win situation. The more you help the recipient, the more the recipient is in a position to help you. I will tell you that it is a bad idea to send emails on your smartphone. There are two problems with it. Number one, when we're typing with our thumbs, the odds of us getting really a typo-free, a clean, professional email are pretty small. It's not going to look very well. It's probably not going to read very well. I mean, that's fine if you're sending your mom an email or sending a text to your friend, but when you're doing it in a professional context, that's not going to cut it. The second problem with the smartphone is that most smartphones have a line at the bottom that says sent from the smartphone. They include that because they know your email is going to be kind of lousy. And it's kind of almost like an apology. Hey, you know, I did my best, but I was doing this on my smartphone, so expect typos. That's kind of what the message is. But it also communicates to the recipient, yeah, I don't really care that much about you or this message. I'm just going to kind of dash this off. And so just to let you know, I couldn't really be bothered to sit at a computer or a laptop and type it up. So if you really, really, really have to go ahead and compose your email on a smartphone, triple check it for typos and be sure to erase that sent from my iPhone or sent from my Samsung or whatever. Those are just some good pieces of advice to put you in the situation where you'll be most successful. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you correspond with your instructors, you need to do that from your Cougar Mail email address. Instructors are really not supposed to be using students' personal email. If you want a record of your correspondence with your instructor in your personal email, you have a couple of choices to do. One is you can CC yourself on to your personal email address from your Cougar Mail. Another option, let me show you this one, is if we go to modules, scroll down, we're still in the syllabus course information module. You scroll down here, you'll see that there is, I may not have it here. I will post it. I don't see it here. I will post it here that will give you instructions about how to forward your Cougar Mail emails to your personal email. So it will be posted probably right around here. So near the bottom of your first module, you will have information about how to forward it. Now, that's not going to completely eliminate your need to go to your Cougar Mail. You'll get all of the mail that goes to your Cougar Mail to your personal email, but you'll still need to correspond with me from your Cougar Mail. But at least it will reduce the amount of time that you have to spend with Cougar Mail. Again, that's completely your choice. You absolutely don't have to do that, but many students find it's more convenient. So those are the guidelines about how to complete emails. If you send me an email that doesn't meet these qualifications, I'm going to send you some suggestions about how you can improve it, and then you can resend it to me, and then we'll address the substance of the issue. I know it's annoying. I apologize in advance, but it really is important that you approach sending correspondence in the best possible and professional manner. You'll want to do that in your career, and if you aren't already at that point, now is the time to go ahead and grab the gusto and take care of that. Okay, so let's look at the course calendar. You'll see that I'll list the week of the course here, and then I will indicate what we cover. And so you'll see in this particular example, I have Module 1 in week 1, I have Module 2 in week 2. If it's a long semester, meaning spring or fall, usually we'll have one module for most weeks. If you're taking this course over the summer term, since there's only 10 weeks then, you'll find most likely that you'll have 2 or more modules over a particular week. So it's going to depend upon those circumstances. The midterm will be about in the middle point of the semester, not surprisingly. And of course, the final will be at the end of the semester. So that's an overview of our syllabus. Now we're going to flip and look at a couple of other things that I want to pay particular attention to. So I'm going to go to a PowerPoint. We are in the module section. If you look here, we have I guess right now it's the fourth item down. We have a PowerPoint. So I've already opened this PowerPoint. I'm now going to flip over to the PowerPoint and we're going to go through this. Many of these aspects I'm going to be able to dash through quickly because I've already covered them in the syllabus. So let's get started. I'm going to try to, in this part of the presentation, answer as many questions as I can. I like to anticipate the questions. I've taught online for many, many years, and so I hopefully am able to predict the kinds of questions that come up. Of course, you may come up with some new questions, and that's great. Please reach out to me, again, through my collin.edu email, or come by my office hours, and I'll be glad to help with those. This is me. I don't have bangs right now, but that's a pretty good rendering of what I look like. So if you see me on campus, be sure to stop and introduce yourself to me. I have been an attorney since 1990. I initially practiced in a large law firm in the Houston area called Baker Botts. Then I went to work in-house. They call in-house attorneys people who work for corporations. And I went to work for JCPenney in Plano for about 17 years. I came to work at Collin in 2010, and I have been a full-time instructor here since then. I primarily teach in the paralegal program. A paralegal, by the way, is an assistant to an attorney. In many senses, they are like nurses are to doctors, so somewhat different, but many analogies exist. If you have an interest in the law, I would be glad to talk to you about either the option of going to law school or the option of becoming a paralegal. There's benefits to both, and I'm delighted to spend more time talking about those types of things. By the way, many times paralegals become HR managers. I had the privilege of managing many paralegals when I was at JCPenney, and several of the paralegals with whom I worked became HR managers. So that's a very logical transition between fields. Of course, you don't have to be a paralegal to become an HR manager, just one more option. In addition to my involvement in the paralegal program, I also teach business law, and I teach hospitality law, and I teach employment practices, this class, of course. When I was an active attorney for those 20 years, I primarily practiced labor and employment law. So this course is exactly well suited to my skill set. And you'll see as we go through the materials that I'm going to share lots of information about my particular experiences. People really do the craziest things at work. So in my experience, this is one of the most entertaining sections of the law, and probably one of the more rewarding sections of the law. So I hope that you'll find this course interesting. I hope that you'll find it, or I think that you'll find it surprising. When I teach obviously I teach lots of various areas of the law in the paralegal program, and one of the feedbacks I get from paralegal students is, wow, I had no idea. Wow, I thought the answer to that would have been something very different. Sometimes the law is predictable and people can easily anticipate what the answer is going to be. But in the area of employment law, many times the answers are surprising. That can be difficult if you're a student trying to learn the stuff, but it does make it interesting. And I always like to reverse engineer why the law gives a particular answer, because that can, number one, help me remember what the right answer is, and it can also give me insights as to what policymakers are thinking in these areas. I am very much looking forward to getting to know you and having the shared experience of this class. If you have questions about being an HR manager, I'll be glad to help in those areas as well. HR managers were my main clients, so I have dealt with many, many HR managers in a variety of different circumstances. Some of them are my best friends. A few of them are my worst enemies, to be honest with you. Relationships between the HR manager and the HR attorney can be complicated from time to time. But in any event, it can be a very, very rewarding career path for the right person. Of course, HR work is not for everyone. One of the benefits, I like to say, to becoming an HR manager is you will always have a good answer to this question. This a very common interview question, as I'm sure you know. What was the worst thing about your former job? And it's really a question that is fraught with peril for most applicants because, you don't want to say, oh, I hated my boss, or, I hated having to come to work on time. Most of the things you can say that you hated make you sound lazy or incompetent or maybe a bad match for the job that you're applying to. But if you're an HR manager, you have an automatic perfect answer. And that is, one of my job tasks was unfortunately having to let people go sometimes. It was always difficult. I always dotted my I's and crossed my T's and made sure that it was the right decision, but no one likes to negatively impact somebody's life in that way, and I've had to do that several times. That is the perfect answer. So one good thing about being an HR manager is you can answer at least that one interview question effectively. Okay, let's go to my office hours. We already talked about where my office is located, so I'm not going to go through this anymore. Of course, you'll check your syllabus for my actual office hours. And then the online classroom, we haven't talked about this yet. My online class is pretty different than most people's online class. I try to, as much as possible, replicate the traditional classroom. So I will have lectures for everything that we cover in our class. And you will definitely need to watch those lectures. I like to tell people you want to read the textbook and you want to watch the lectures. But if for some reason you only have time to do one, every single time watch the lectures. You're much more likely to do well on the tests if you watch the lectures than simply reading the textbook. So do both, but in a perfect world, or in the real world, sometimes, which is less than the perfect world, you may have to make choices, and the more important choice is for you to watch the lectures. Now, I will tell you, if you have the opportunity to read the textbook and watch the lectures, read the textbook first. The textbook is going to give you a big picture understanding of the material, and then we'll drill down to more details as we go through the lecture. Now, of course, one of the differences between an online class and a face-to-face class is you can't really raise your hand. So as you're listening to lectures, take notes, things that come up that you have questions about. You can either send me an email, or I'll show you where you can post your questions, or you can come to my office hours to get those questions resolved. I certainly want to make sure that you are able to get all those questions resolved. Once you get started this week early, ideally you're going to want to wander through Canvas, kind of explore the nooks and crannies, turn over a few rocks. By really getting familiar with how it's set up, by understanding its structure, you're going to be in a position to be more successful. Every now and again, I'll have a student who didn't fully explore Canvas, and they may have missed assignments or tests that they needed to take, and obviously that's a very frustrating experience. Sometimes the student also misses resources. Maybe there were study aids that were available that they didn't see. So be sure to kick the tires, look around this first week so you can understand how things are. And we'll talk in a few minutes about tools for watching the lectures. When you watch the lectures or listen to the lectures, you're going to want to have your study guide handy. I'll show you that in a second. This study guide really adds a lot of value to the lecture process, and I'll explain why that's the case in a few minutes. I've already shown you where the orientation material is. Oh, sorry about this, but let me just refresh on that. The orientation is the first module. It's called Start Here, Syllabus, and Course Information. So it goes down for several items. It goes down until calculating and curving grades, and we'll talk about that one in a few minutes. If you haven't dealt with Canvas in the past, maybe you're new to Collin, or you're new to an online environment, this can be a helpful way to get your bearings with Canvas. We've already gone through the syllabus. I like to spend a lot of time on it because it really is a roadmap to success. Common things that students miss who aren't familiar with the syllabus is sometimes they invest a lot of time in something that isn't going to give them any points. For example, some students spend a lot of time on discussion boards. Well, I'm not at all going to discourage you from spending time on discussion boards. The maximum you can get is 5%. So you don't want to, spend hours and hours a week on your discussion board and neglect the chapter and the lectures and other tools. So be sure to budget your time in accordance with the weight things are given on the syllabus. You'll also want to keep track of announcements. I'm going to show you those announcements in a few minutes. You'll want to visit the course at least twice a week. and you'll want to visit by at least Tuesday for the first visit. I suggest on that first visit, Tuesday or Wednesday, so maybe your second visit, you're going to want to post your substantive post, your first post. You have to do that by noon on Saturday. If you do it after that time, you're going to get a deduction. The reason that I require that you do that is because everyone in the class needs somebody to reply to. And if nobody's posted, or let's say you post, we'll say you post at noon on Sunday, and you're actually leaving to do something at noon, and you're not going to be back and available to do anything more on the board. Well, if no one has made a post, you can't reply, and so you are essentially locked out of that system. So that's why I ask that you post by noon on Saturday, but ideally quite a bit before then. You must make your post over a span of at least 2 days. I don't remind a lot about deadlines. We're all adults in the course, and we're all professionals, and so I anticipate that you have calendared all the due dates. Be sure to do that, and that way as you go through your day, when you wake up in the morning, you look at your calendar, you see what's going on, you look a week ahead to see what's coming up, and you're in a position to budget your time accordingly. Boy, I tell you, one of the banes of my existence is computers. I have bad computer karma. Things always seem to be going wrong for me, and I don't know if that's a common thing to have happen or not, but I think many of us have had moments in our careers where documents were lost or systems crashed or things like that. As you know, it is intensely frustrating, and it can be a really, really big problem. I am very sensitive and compassionate about those issues. But the one thing that I won't be is I won't be in a position to extend deadlines. I give the whole course to you at the beginning of the semester, and I don't extend deadlines for computer problems or things like that. My thought process is that it's one thing that your computer crashed on Sunday, but why didn't you submit it on Saturday, or why didn't you submit it on Friday? And that's why my piece of advice is plan on submitting everything at least 24 hours before the deadline, because then if something does happen, you can go to a plan B situation. Professionally for me, I always look at 48 hours, but that's a personal judgment for you to make. Now, obviously, if you submit it in the last day, that's fine. Most of the time, you won't have a computer problem, but you are opening yourself up to the possibility that you will, and that's always not a good thing. Your Wi-Fi can go out, your computer can crash, lots of different things can happen. Be kind to yourself. Give yourself the gift of time to work out problems when and if they arise. We've already talked about how to reach me. We've already talked about emails. We'll talk about announcements in a few minutes. When I send you an announcement, you'll actually have access to it in 2 ways. It will go to your Cougar Mail email address, and then of course if you forward it, then it'll go to your personal email. Then it will also appear in the Announcements tab on Canvas. Another place to be familiar with is your questions / instructors pointers. You can list questions here, and you can go there to see pointers that I may have posted. Of course, if you want to send me a private message about questions that you have, you're welcome to do that, but you may have a global question that you think other students might be interested in. So this is a good forum to go ahead and post the answers there. That's really your choice. And this is the breakdown of grades. Now I'm going to talk about something I haven't talked about yet, but I want to share this with you because this is pretty cool. You will see on Canvas that there are lots of discussion boards, lots of chapter assignments, and lots of chapter quizzes, but you just need to do 10. Now I say top 10 because you might find that the first chapter quiz you take, you don't do so well on. No worries. Just go ahead and do 11. That first quiz will drop. But let's say you do very well in the first 10 quizzes you take. You don't have to do any more. You certainly can do more, but it's not a requirement. It's the top 10. Now, if you only do 9, your 10th grade will be a 0. Not the biggest tragedy in the world. As you can see, each chapter quiz is only worth 2% of your grade. Each chapter assignment is only worth 2% of your grade. Each discussion board is worth 0.5% of your grade. So missing one isn't a big deal, but you obviously ideally don't want to miss any. So that's how this works, and that's a helpful thing to keep in mind. Students sometimes forget this, and what students sometimes do is they will go ahead and participate in every discussion board and then not get to 10 chapter assignments or not get to 10 chapter quizzes. That's not good. You want to reach the 10 for each one of these categories, and then if time permits, do the 11th or the 12th or the 13th. Here's a summary of the things that you'll want to do every week. You may want to, by the way, going back here, go ahead and pause me and write this down in your notebook to show that you only need to do 10 of these items. Very common thing. At the end of the semester, students will come to me and say, there was just so much work to do. I said, oh, did you do more than 10 of these activities? And they'll go, yes. I'm like, well, you didn't need to. Great that you did, but it wasn't a requirement of the course. So here's a list of the things that you'll be doing over each week. This again assumes that we have a long semester. If a particular week has more than one module associated with it, then you're going to need to do this for each one of the modules. We'll talk a little bit later about the not for a grade study activity. You may want to take a picture of this slide. There's another place called Cheat Sheet that I list this information as well. We'll talk about that in a second. We've already talked about the midterm, about the 10 days notice that you need to give me. Some students ask, well, why do I need to give you 10 days notice? I do that because there's several different things that have to happen. You send me the email, then you need to run a diagnostic test on your computer. Sometimes students need to buy a webcam or things like that. And then the student needs to report back to me whether their system is compliant or not, and whether they're interested in paying the expense factor associated with it. Then I need to go in and set up the ProctorU test for that particular student, and I need to set up the information in the ProctorU system. Then the third thing that needs to happen is ProctorU needs to set up the test. And sometimes ProctorU can take several days to do this. I've seen it take at least 2 days, and then sometimes they will ask me a question. Well, what do you think about this? Or can we do it this way? And so that can add additional days. And as a result, when you add up all those days, sometimes it can be as long as 10 days. And what I don't want to have happen is that we're rushing to get things set up, and for whatever reason, ProctorU doesn't work out, and now it's too late for you to take the test in the testing center. I want you to be successful, and there's really no reason why you can't send me the notice right now. So pause it right now if you think you want to take ProctorU. Send me the email to cgroover@collin.edu so we can get the ball rolling with respect to that. One thing I want to flag about ProctorU is that ProctorU, the window for taking the test typically opens the same time as the window for taking it at a Collin Testing Center. Sometimes ProctorU will be delayed, so sometimes there's 1 or 2 days that you lose at the beginning. But I always turn off ProctorU 1 day earlier than the testing window. I do that for a few reasons. One reason is that ProctorU is a 24/7 enterprise, so you can take a ProctorU test at 2 a.m. in the morning. You can also take it on Sundays, and so there are more hours available than there are at the Collin Testing Center. And so I'm trying to balance out those two testing environments. That's one reason, but the real reason is that sometimes problems happen. Sometimes sometimes students are planning to take the test through ProctorU and it doesn't work out. Their credit card gets declined or their computer doesn't end up being compliant and they can't complete the test. Well, they can still go to the testing center if there's at least 1 day left, and so that's why I close it 1 day early. Again, the same things with the final examination. By the way, if you take the ProctorU test or take the midterm through ProctorU, you'll need to make a separate request to do it for the final examination because I won't know whether you want to take both or just one through the ProctorU tool. Already talked about class participation and the boards. The discussion boards close typically at 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. And so that's a good rule of thumb. Occasionally I will extend it if there's technical issues or things like that, but you shouldn't count on there being any kind of extension. This will be the same deadline when various assignments are going to be due too. I try to make everything due other than tests at this time so it's easy for you to calendar and you're not going to have to remember multiple deadline systems. Let's see here. Okay, so you may have some great news this semester. You may be having a baby or getting married or maybe going on various and sundry trips. Sounds great. I hope you have a wonderful time and lots of luck with whatever's going on with you. Please know that you can work ahead. If you need to take the midterm earlier or the final examination earlier, I am delighted to help you with that. I don't allow things to be taken after, but I am happy to arrange for you to take things earlier. Everything in the course is available to you right now, all the way to the final examination. In fact, the only two things you can't do right this very second is take the midterm and the final examination. I just have to set those up. But I can set it up within a day or two, so there's no real impediment. Working ahead can make a lot of sense depending upon the requirements of your job, your current job, or maybe your travel plans or some other details. So please please realize that that is a complete option in this course. So sometimes people have computer problems. You may have an unreliable computer or maybe you don't have access to a computer at all. No worries. Your tuition dollar pays for you to have access to Collins Computer Labs. We have a computer lab on all 3 of our major campuses and you're welcome to come. You just need your student ID. And by the way, let me go back for a second and talk about the testing center. I should have mentioned this then. When you go to the testing center, if you've never used a Collins Testing Center before, you will need to have your student ID with you. My suggestion is to pause when I'm done saying this so you can write this information down. Your driver's license, unfortunately, will not work, so you'll need to get your student ID. You can get your student ID from Student Life. Your first student ID is free. If you've mislaid or lost your student ID, I think there's about a $5 fee to get a new one. The trickiest part of the student ID is going to Student Life at a time that it's open. So you want to call ahead or check their schedule to see when they're available to take your picture and give you a new student ID if you've mislaid one. You do need that for the testing center. To actually take the midterm and the final examination, you don't need a pencil, you don't need a Scantron. It's a computer-based system, which is awesome until it's not awesome. And there's always the possibility that so many people will be in the testing center that all the computers will be taken. In that situation, you'll have to wait your turn. Another thing to keep in mind about the testing center is the testing centers don't have unlimited hours. They typically have their most open time from Mondays through Thursdays, but on Fridays they start a little bit later. I think maybe on Thursdays they also open a little later, and on Fridays they close significantly earlier. On Saturdays they are open, but they also close quite a bit earlier than they do during the week, and they're not open at all on Sunday, so be sure to know and schedule when you're going to want to go. Another important thing to keep in mind is that they close or they don't issue new tests during the last hour that the center is open. Most of these, or I would say both of these tests that I offer, you're going to want more than an hour to complete it. So that's really not going to be an issue. But let's say you're a quick test taker or you're pressed for time and you show up when there's less than an hour to go. It doesn't matter that you are going to complete it in enough time. They're not going to give you a chance to try. So be aware of that limitation. Feedback on your work. I am glad to sit down with you and go over your tests and your assignments and your quizzes. I don't do that via email, but I'm glad to do it during my office hours, during Zoom hours or face-to-face hours. Just come by and we can go through all of the answers. You can see what the answers are. We can talk about why the answer is what it is. I especially enjoy meeting with students about those topics. I think it's a really smart and good plan for you to come by and get that information. Here's some suggestions about how to be successful in this course. You may want to take a picture of this as well. This one I highly recommend you do take a picture of. Here are strategies about how to handle situations that might arise when the computer kind of does a bit of a hiccup and you're having difficulty accessing Canvas or accessing some assignments. The problem, of course, in those situations is you can't access this cheat sheet because you can't get into Canvas to begin with. But here are some strategies that can come up. Sometimes I, the instructor, have caused the problem. If you think that that may be the case, send me an email. I apologize in advance if I caused a problem. I definitely want to do everything I can to fix it. Most of the time it won't be me, but it certainly can be me. So if it's not me, here are some other strategies to consider. One would be just to reboot your computer. Maybe the cache is overloaded or something along those lines. I'm not a computer person, so I apologize if that doesn't make sense. You may just find by restarting your computer, everything works well. Another idea is to change browsers. Google Chrome is the best choice for Canvas, but Firefox is also good. Since I do kind of behind the scenes things in Canvas, I use Google Chrome about 90% of the time, but there are certain things I do on Canvas that I switch to Firefox because Firefox is the better browser for that purpose. Safari also is fine. Internet Explorer, not so great. It'll work, but it's not the best choice. Sometimes it might just be an issue with your Wi-Fi, or maybe your computer is a bit older or doesn't have all the bells and whistles that you need to access everything. And so using a different computer can be a choice. Again, you have access to the Collin Computer Lab. This is one that works for me. I'm embarrassed to say how often this works. I can be staring at something on a computer and not see that obvious thing to do. And so ask somebody else to look it over. Sometimes another set of eyes can see what the problem is. If none of these approaches solves the problem, reach out to the e-learning center. They are true experts in this area and they're very, very helpful. Sometimes the problem can be something that you and I just don't have access to solving, and they are the experts who can go behind the scenes and do the fixes that need to be done. So keep that option in mind as well. So this concludes this PowerPoint, but we still have the tour to give, so I'm excited about our wonderful semester, but stick with me a little bit longer to complete the tour of Canvas. This is our course. I'm going to go to our starting page. So when you come to our course, well, it's not very pretty. Let's see, let me go over here. Make it look, well, it's not going to look pretty here. Let me see if I can make it look pretty. I'll go into another class here. Oh, wow. Anyway, there's usually 3 nice buttons here. This will be the first shot that you get when you go onto into our classroom. You can click on the buttons if you want to. This is the middle one that you'll mainly want to click to. On the other hand, you can also just click on modules over here. So I'm going to click on modules. Actually, I'm going to make it back to student view. And click on modules. And again, the first module is that kind of orientation module. And here you'll see the lectures. You've obviously found the lectures because you're watching the class right now. Here's the PowerPoint I just went over, and here's the syllabus. Here's that Canvas orientation quiz. I'm just going to open it up so you can see it. You want to have your orientation materials handy. You will have wanted to view them and have them available so you can answer the questions. As you can see, you'll have 3 attempts. And currently I don't have a due date entered here, but it will be about a week after the semester starts. So you'll want to calendar that date in your calendar. So what you see when you go into Canvas, add that date to your calendar. Then I'm going to show you a memory palace. You may not be familiar with the concept of memory palaces, but it's a super, super cool thing. Google it, find out more about it, because it can really make a big difference in how you perform in classes that involve a lot of memory work, be they foreign language courses or other types of courses. The people with best memories aren't necessarily the smartest people. They are the people who have been rigorous and systematic about how they store their memories. There are methodologies to this, and one of the most famous methodologies is the memory palace. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. I'm certainly not an expert in it, so I'm not the best person to teach anyway. And it is a mental discipline that you can't take up super quickly, but the concept is that you get a schema or an idea about how a particular system is set up. So for example, I might think of in my memory palace, I might think of the desk drawer in my bedroom of my memory palace is where I put all of the information about the National Labor Relations Act. And on top of my bed, I put all of the information about the Family Medical Leave Act. And in my dining room, on the dining room table, I spread out all of the information about Title VII. So I organize it, and obviously I drill down even more than that I will have maybe in front of each place setting a different category. Maybe in front of the head of the table I have race discrimination, and then next to that I have sex discrimination, next to that I have national origin discrimination. By having a way of organizing this and having a spot for everything, it becomes much more easy to retrieve it because the memories are organized. And that's what memory palaces will do. So in this course, and really any course that involves a lot of memorization, you're going to want to have a broad brush stroke, broad understanding of the different categories. That's why you read the textbook first before you go into class, before you go into lecture. And then in the lecture, be it recorded lecture or face-to-face lecture, you drill down and get all of the specifics nailed down. And so you're able to add a lot of granularity to that maybe a broad brushstroke image that we currently have. And you can see here the level of detail that we have in this memory palace. Okay, anyway, just my spiel for one tool that is very helpful in learning all the specifics, because you will be learning a lot of specifics. I'm sorry in advance. Cheat sheet. This is something you're going to use every week. So I'm going to pause. You're going to pause me right now, and you're going to write down your note. Refer to cheat sheet every week. This goes through all the things you need to do every week, and it gives you a suggested order. You're going to read the assigned chapter or chapters first. You're going to watch the video lectures. You're going to watch any other lectures. If you have questions, you're going to post them. You're going to participate in the discussion board. You might do this earlier, just after you've read the chapter, but you could wait until this point. You're going to complete the chapter assignments. You're going to do at least 10 of these just over the course of this semester. You're also going to answer the chapter quizzes. Now, these 2 items, technically you can wait on. Well, I'll show you where the deadlines are for this in a few minutes. But you don't want to wait. That's not a good plan. I give some flexibility because I know many times students' lives are pretty crazy. You've got job, you've got spouses, you've got kids, you've got just lots of different things that are going on in your life, and every minute is precious. And if I can give you some additional flexibility, that can be very helpful. I want to do that for you, but there's always going to be that temptation for you to delay. At least I experience that temptation. And so please don't yield to it. treat these extensions as, well, gosh, if I get myself into a pickle, I can automatically give myself an extension, but I'm not going to take advantage of that barring extreme circumstances. And then we'll talk about this last thing. This is not for a grade, as you can see by the name, it's called Not for a Grade Study Activities. We'll talk more about that in a couple of minutes. In addition, I've kind of flagged here, hey, thinking about taking a ProctorU test? Well, here you need to go out and reach out to me. So this is the cheat sheet. Be sure to pay attention to this. Probably for the first half of the semester, promise me that you'll refer to this at the beginning of each week. And this is where you can post questions for everyone to see, and then I may post pointers for everyone as well. This is that first discussion board. It's set up a little differently than the others. You can see that this is due early in the semester. You can see the due date right here. So we scroll down here, you'll see typically, in fact, in this case, I've got one due date that's earlier. These due dates may be different for your semester. And then you'll have the next week this due date, as well as this due date. So the first 2 weeks, at least this semester, I have 3 different discussion boards due. So it's not always going to be the case that there's just one discussion board in a particular week. This is a very short video. I think it's about 3-4 minutes that covers how to calculate grades and how to curve grades. And this is a good time to talk about both of those topics. Let me go to grades. Let's pretend that Bob is in this class. And you can see here, this is during the semester, so there aren't any grades for Bob. In this particular semester, I've programmed in the percentages for grades. I do that some semesters I don't. The reason that I don't always do that is that Canvas is awesome. I love Canvas. I am so thrilled that we are using Canvas at Collin. Even though it's awesome, it has limitations, and one of its limitations is it's not very good at calculating grades. I have some pretty sophisticated equations that I use in my classes for calculating grades. Grades that I drop, grades that I treat in lots of different ways. As a result, Canvas can't accurately calculate your grades. I will calculate your grade accurately, but don't trust Canvas. When I do program Canvas in, as I have this particular semester, Canvas will be pretty close. It won't know to drop all the grades that I drop. It won't know if you're taking a ProctorU test. It won't know what to do with your test grades. Because everyone, you can't take the ProctorU test and the testing center test. So there's issues like that that it won't know what to do. So it won't give you a completely accurate grade. So if I could, I would tell Canvas, don't even show this information because it's going to cause students anxiety and confusion. Unfortunately, I can't cause Canvas to block this. And so what happens, and it usually happens in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the semester, is I will get some frantic emails from students. Hey, Professor Groover, I thought I was doing good in this class, but I see that I'm failing. Almost always those students are mistaken. They have trusted this information that Canvas is giving, but in fact it's not at all accurate. So don't look at this. Pause me right now and write down in your notes. Do not just look at the raw data in Canvas. Do not trust Canvas's calculation. So you say, well, how do I know what my grades are if I can't trust Canvas? Let me show you. We're going to go back to the syllabus. Here is the formula for your grades. So what you'll do is you'll take this formula and you'll take the actual grades that are entered, all the grades that are above these kind of in bold entries here. So from here on up, you'll take these grades and you'll plug them in. Let's say that you took you participated in 12 discussion boards. You'll look to see what are your 10 highest scores, so you'll drop your 2 low scores. You'll come up with an average and you'll enter that grade. It just so happens that you can earn 5 points on a discussion board and it's worth 5 points. I'm sorry. And so you can just take the average and stick it in for this value. You look at your orientation grade. If you scored 90 or above, you're going to get 1% here. If you scored 89 or below, you're going to get a 0 here. And you're going to go through all of these items. Your chapter assignment, each one is worth 20 points. So guess what? You just have to come up with the average. But let's say you just did 10 chapter assignments. Well, you need to then, for your 10, so you just did 9 chapter assignments. For your 10th chapter assignment, you'll need to put a 0 in. So let's say you got it perfect. You had 20, 20, 20, 20, 9 20s, and then the 1 0. Okay, well, under that situation, you will have, I guess, an 18 as for your average grade. So you'll have 18 points here for this purpose. For your chapter quizzes, your average grade, once we drop the ones that were lower, ends up being a 17 out of 20. So we'll put a 17 here. And then obviously you'll enter your midterm or your final examination. Canvas will think you didn't do one of your midterms, you didn't do one of your final examinations because you didn't have ProctorU. Or maybe you had ProctorU but you use the testing center. That information is inaccurate, obviously. You're just going to take these tests once, and so you'll be able to plug those in. Now you may be thinking to yourself, gosh, I'm not a math major. I can't figure all this stuff out. No worries. It isn't your job to calculate your grade. That's my job, and I'm very good at it. I'm very detailed oriented. I promise you I'm going to get it right. So I guess my first piece of advice is don't worry about it. But if you are worried about it, come see me. We'll sit down together. And don't come to see me in the last 2 weeks because you and I are both too busy to worry about a meeting about this. But come to see me, say, in the 3rd or 4th week of the semester, and I will show you how to calculate the grade. I will give you some guidance about how to do that. We can spend as long as you want so that you're comfortable and you feel empowered to make those calculations. Alternatively, you can wait until after the semester is over and I've submitted the grades. You see your grade in the Cougar Web and you think, gosh, I don't think that's right. Come see me and I'll be glad to go over how I calculated your grade. And in the unlikely event that I made a mathematical error, I will be delighted to make that correction for you. So again, this isn't something you need to worry too much about. The main thing is how to decide where to invest your effort. Don't worry so much about crunching the numbers because that's not something that's part of your job responsibilities in this class. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the modules. Another thing I do, and how to calculate your grade is covered briefly in this video. I also talk about how I curve grades. I'm not going to talk about this right now, except to say this video covers this topic, and I do curve grades, and that's, I think, useful information for students to have. Okay, so let's go to an example of a module. Make sure I've covered everything that I wanted to. Oh, before we go to the modules, let's talk about the announcements. So over here you'll see the announcements. Again, you'll actually get all of these announcements in your inbox. Here are some examples of announcements. Actually, I'm going to leave student view for a second so we can see more announcements. What I do is I have lots of announcements that I tweak every semester to customize them to the particular course. And so here's an example of one. We'll look at the one from Chapter 9. What I do first of all is I cover some general information about the topic. Again, this is like the memory palace thing. I'm giving you the rooms. I'm not going to tell you everything that goes in the room, but I'm giving you the architectural structure so that you can fill the rooms almost like you were decorating a house. You're not going to put a sofa in your bathroom. You're going to make sure there's a sink in the bathroom, for example. You're not going to put the bed in your kitchen. You're going to put that in the bedroom. This is helping you sort through those particular things, those particular topics. Most of the time, my takeaways will be a couple of pages long, so it's kind of a very brief executive summary. Near the bottom, I typically include the things that you need to cover for this particular week. So for example, read the chapter, watch the lectures. Sometimes there's one lecture, sometimes there's 2 lectures. And also I remind you, hey, you know what? It's best that you go ahead and complete the chapter quiz, even though you may technically have more time to take it. Then I suggest that you work on learning the vocabulary. the vocabulary kills a lot of students in this class. I'm not going to lie to you. This is almost like a foreign language class. There is so much vocabulary, and in my lectures, I assume you know the vocabulary. And so it's almost like I'm a very, very, very bad Spanish speaker. But one of the things I try to do in my spare time is watch telenovelas so that my Spanish maybe can get slightly less than really, really awful. And as I'm watching it, I'm understanding about 50% of it. I'm catching, maybe 50% of the words. So I'm getting the gist of it. And of course, I'm watching how people are acting, and you can get a lot of hints that way. As soon as I put on the Spanish language captions, or even better, the English language captions, I'm understanding 100%. Because the mystery is solved. I now understand that, T.O. Bob is Uncle Bob. And now it's making sense to me. That's kind of the way this class is. It's almost like I'm going to be speaking a foreign language when I use these terms if you don't know what they mean. And there's so many of these new terms that you're not going to have a sufficient context to always figure out what they are. So if you can stay ahead of the vocabulary so that you know when I say that word what that means, or maybe you pause me and look up the word, you're going to be ahead of the game. So seriously work on that vocabulary. Let me show you how I suggest you work on the vocabulary. I love Quizlet. I use it myself. When I'm working with my students, I use it. Here, we're not gonna do that. Here we go. You can see here, I'm working with my son on his Spanish prepositions. And so here are the lists that he has. You can see here that he has various prepositions that he's working on learning. And there's lots of different activities. We can do flashcards, where I give him the flashcard in English, and then he tries to do it in the other language. Obviously, in our case, it'd all be in English. There's games you can play. You can set up tests. This is a feature I especially like, the learn function, because it kind of holds your hand through that process. So seriously consider using it for this class. If you're taking other courses that are memory intensive, Quizlet can also be a very nice help. You will find that Quizlet is completely free. Now, Quizlet will want you to pay for its service, but there really is no need to pay for it. So there are other applications out there similar to Quizlet. So if you prefer something else that's equally wonderful, just be sure to find one tool that works for you. An interesting thing about human memory is that an integral part of us moving memories from short-term memory to long-term memory, in other words, to really keep that memory, is the sleep process. So let's say that I have decided I am going to allocate 4 hours to a particular test preparation. Don't have any more than the 4 hours. Well, I could spend the 4 hours the night before the test cramming. Or I could spend maybe 20 minutes for the 12 days before, 20 minutes every day. If I do the 4 hours, one super long cram session, I'm only going to give myself one night of sleep to transition those things that I've learned into long-term memory. In other words, that they'll be available for the test time. The reality is not many of those will transfer. But if I did 20 minutes a day, then I'm giving myself 12 sleeps, or 12 periods of sleep, that I can move those memories. So same amount of time commitment is going to yield significantly more retention. And plus, it's just so much more pleasant to say, oh, I only have to spend 20 minutes on this. I mean, I know my course is insanely fun, but still, you're a busy person. So spending more than 20 minutes or 30 minutes in a particular time period is probably asking too much. And studies indicate that after about 20 or 25 minutes, our attention does start to flag. So it's a good idea to take a break after 20 minutes anyway. So those are some strategies. My philosophy about studying is study smarter rather than longer. I know that your time is very precious, it's very scarce, and so you ought to be strategic about how you go about studying. So you will see that I will send at least one email a week, oftentimes multiple emails. Be on the lookout for them. These are very helpful ways of organizing the material. And after all, the things that I think are important are probably the things that are going to be reflected on the tests as well. Okay, so let's talk about the modules now. As you start the week, of course, you're going to want to, let me minimize this module. So we're on module 1. As you start the week, you're going to want to start by refreshing yourself on the cheat sheet. So look at this one before you get too far into the week to make sure you've planned for all of these components. Okay? And also look at the takeaways. Usually I send the takeaways, I programmed it so that they will be waiting in your email or waiting in the announcements section when you get up Monday morning. Every now and again I forget or I'm delayed. If you're ready for it and I haven't sent it, send me an email, and that's a helpful reminder for me to get my act together and get it out to you. So now that you've looked at your cheat sheet and you've looked at the takeaways, you're ready to start the module. First thing you're going to do, of course, is read the chapter or the chapters. And then you'll see another good thing to do next is either to watch the lectures or participate in the discussion board. Sometimes will be one lecture, sometimes will be 2 lectures, sometimes more than 2 lectures. You'll see because we're not locked into class time, sometimes the total number of hours for a lecture will be significantly less than 3 hours. Sometimes they'll be significantly more than 3 hours because we're not bounded by, the classroom setting. So you may want to check before you start the semester to see, or start the time to see how long. Let's just look to see how long these lectures are. I'm going to click on this. You can see if I get this started, this is 1 hour and 30 minutes. Okay, so oops, here we go, sorry about that. And then we'll see how long the second lecture was. That was 1 hour and 50 minutes. So we're just a little bit beyond 3 hours, about 3 hours and 20 minutes. Sometimes they'll be longer than that, sometimes they'll be shorter than that. And so that's a useful thing for you to know as you're budgeting your time. So how should you approach the lectures? Well, first of all, you want to read that chapter first, so you will have your rooms set up in your brain so you'll be able to meaningfully organize the data. The next thing you're going to want to use your study guide. Let me go ahead and open the study guide so you can see what I mean. You can print this up or work from your computer this way. You'll see that this contains the same content that is on the PowerPoint that you will see when you do the lecture. So you can see the first section of this particular study guide is going to start with module topics. You can see introduction, workers and independent contractors, temporary and leased workers. Well, let's just go to that lecture so we can see that that's all there. Oops, here we go. Welcome to this presentation. We're going to be discussing the regulation of in this presentation. We won't be covering the entire PowerPoint. And you can see these are the topics: workers and independent contractors, temporary or leased workers. So it's the same information that you see on the PowerPoint. I actually do also post the PowerPoint. So if you prefer to work from the PowerPoint, you can. But I do sometimes include additional information in the study guide that is especially useful for test preparation, and it also will involve killing fewer trees. So you have the option of the PowerPoint, but I strongly recommend that you use the study guide. Then oftentimes there will be additional videos. This one we only have one, a short video about the differences between employees and independent contractors. The videos that I have posted will vary from semester to semester. Actually, let me make this available for student view. You'll see all the other boring stuff. Okay, And so you'll see we have something called Not for a Grade Study Activity, and you'll see we have the Chapter 1 assignment and the Chapter 1 quiz. Let's look at the Chapter 1 assignment. So you can see there is no time limit, and you'll see that they're all due, and this happens to be the Sunday night right before finals. The actual date may vary from semester to semester. You'll also see that you have unlimited number of attempts. So you can do Chapter 1 100 times if you want, and it will take your highest grade. Now, you're not going to want to do that, but you could. Let's say the first time you do it, you're disappointed with your grade. It's not done. You can do it as many times as you want. There's a total of 20 questions. There's a total of 20 points. Now, this is how I have it set up now, but in future semesters, I may decide to restrict this. I'm trying something new this time. So it may just be 1 time or 2 times or 3 times. Be sure to look here to make sure that what the parameters are going to be. And again, here's instructions about how to approach this. So let's go back to this. The setup for Chapter 1 quiz, or the chapter quizzes are different. You're just going to have 1 shot at it. It's going to be timed. You're going to have 15 questions to take. Another thing is that once you answer a question, you can't flip back and change your mind about it. You're stuck with whatever that answer is. Again, you only have 10 minutes, so you really don't have time to backtrack anyway. And you can't use, you can use your notes and your lectures and the textbook, but you can't use other human beings. So again, that's how the quiz works. Let me show you that not for a grade activity. I guess the first thing you notice about the not for the grade activity is it's not for a grade, right? What this is all the questions in the question bank. So if you can get all of these questions right, you will get 100 or 20 out of 20 on the assignment and 20 out of 20 on the quiz. And you'll get a perfect on the Chapter 1 questions for the midterm and the final examination. So you are welcome to spend time doing this. And if you come across questions that you don't know the answer to, you're welcome to come see me and I'll be glad to help you with it. But sometimes students discover typos in this. If you do, please let me know. The typos could be typographical errors in the question. I'm the one who typed them up, and I'm not the world's best typist, and there's a lot of questions here. So it's easy to believe that there could be some typos. Another thing you might discover is that it's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's, I'm human, so it's possible that I've selected the wrong answer for a particular question, hitting the wrong key on the computer. If, of course, you think that's true, please let me know. Now, you won't be able to see the answer when you enter it. So it won't be like, oh, I answered question 47, and I want to see if I got it right or wrong. It doesn't reveal that information to you. I don't do that because of test integrity purposes. What you ought to do is you ought to, questions that you're not sure about, what the correct answer is, you ought to go ahead and look up to confirm that you're right. And if you can't find the answer, reach out to me to figure out, we'll figure out together what the correct answer is. If you really want to figure out what the answer is to a particular question, do the not for a grade study activity and answer only that one question when you go through it. And then if you get all of the questions wrong, you know you got that question wrong. If you only answered one question and you only get one question right, you know your answer is right. So there is a way for you to figure out what the answer is, even though the answer itself won't be revealed. As I said before, this is a study tool. It's a really awesome way for you to work towards getting a high grade. I had a student, my first semester I taught it, who did all of these, and to the point that he pretty much knew all the answers. He had above a 100 grade in the class. He kind of killed the curve for everyone else, unfortunately for the other folks in the class. But it is a very useful way of really perfecting this information. Let me see what else we need to cover. So we're going to go through the rest of the modules. Again, we'll get down to one point and you'll see the midterm examination. I have it set up for people who are taking the Collin Testing Center. If there are folks who choose to use ProctorU, then there will be another test for ProctorU students. I have to set up 2 separate tests because I have to have 2 separate passwords. These are password protected tests. That's what controls, that's what gives me the ability to control where you take the test. By the way, the amount of content in these modules varies significantly from week to week. There are some weeks where the work is relatively light, and there are other weeks where the work is significantly more challenging, more voluminous. And because other than really the discussion boards, there's really no limitation to when you do stuff. Feel free to expand and contract. If week 4 seems to be a light week, go ahead and start week 5. If week 5 seems to be a heavy week, be kind to yourself and give yourself part of week 6 to finish week 5. You're not going to get an extension for the discussion board, but you probably don't need to have the world's deepest understanding of the content to be able to complete the discussion board. You'll want to have that level of understanding for the assignment and for the quiz, but again, you have until the end of the semester for those items, in this case to May 12th for both of those items. So don't get too locked into the idea of everything is due at the end of that week, and that there will be some inequities in terms of the amount of work for each module. Of course, when we get to the end, we happen to have a total of 19 modules. The final thing that we'll have is the final examination. Let me flag one more thing. After Module 16, there will not be any chapter quizzes. There will not be any discussion boards, probably. That may change. I may add discussion boards. But there won't be a chapter quiz, there won't be a chapter assignment, and there will be a not for a grade study activity. The reason for that is that these modules are really just a different way of organizing the information that you've already been exposed to. And so the issues that are addressed in this module, those questions will already appear in a different chapter break, and it's going to vary. For example, when we're talking about performance appraisals, there may be issues about performance appraisals in lots of different chapters, and so the questions will come up in a very organic way in the other chapters. So once we get to Module 17, 18, and 19, there is less work. You do have a bit of a breather here. We still have the lectures, but there isn't a chapter in the textbook to read, and there aren't some of the assignments. I kind of have that set up in part to give you a bit of a breather if you've gotten a bit behind on the chapter assignments and chapter quizzes, to give you some opportunity to catch up. But I want to flag this because sometimes students might think, well, I'm not going to participate in all the discussion boards at first. I'm really busy right now. Well, the problem with that is that the discussion boards are going to peter out at some point. And so if you've let several discussion boards pass you by, thinking, oh, well, chapter 17 and 18 and 19 will have discussion boards, well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. And so you want to make sure that you've already planned out the 10 for sure you're going to respond to. Similarly, we won't have a chapter assignment for every single chapter, just for the first 16. So you want to be sure that you're doing one of those for the first 16. Similarly with the chapter quizzes. Let me flag one more issue that can come up. As you know, currently you're able to do each chapter assignment multiple times. But when I say you have to do 10 chapters, that means 10 separate chapters. So you can't do chapter 1 10 times and think that that's going to count as 10 chapters. For one thing, once you complete a chapter, let's say you get 12 out of 20 for the first time you go through the chapter 1 assignment. Then the next time you get a 15 out of 20. Well, the 12 out of 20 goes poof. It's no longer available for us to look at. So there won't be that history we can use. I won't know, honestly, whether you took the quiz once, twice, or 50 times. I'll just know that final grade. So you have to do this for 10 chapters, how many times you actually did an assignment might be 10 or it might be 50. That's for you to decide. Just keep that in mind as you go through that. Again, if you have questions about this, go ahead and send me an email or stop by my office hours. But you may want to make a notation about that policy so that you don't inadvertently set yourself up to have a low chapter assignment grade. Well, at this time, I think that we have completed the material that we were going to cover. I hope that this has been helpful and a little bit entertaining. Mainly, I know it's kind of boring stuff. We're about to start the fun stuff. We're about to start the material that is in the class, and I'm really excited about doing that. And I'm really hopeful that you'll find it both interesting and professionally useful. Thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Take care.